Welcome back on this. Hope you're doing good, as always. What's left of my tea. And I've got a message to send today. Again, it's just I figured out naturally what I need to say, and this is something that is very important, and people should take note of that. In my way of seeing life and consciousness, I always say it is very, very simple. If there's a motion of seeking something and there is a pleasure reward through the motion of seeking through the mind, that is evil. That's that pleasure of Satan, right? The world of Satan is the world of pleasures. And then if you like to be, biblical and whatnot, then the world of Jesus, that would be the world of joy and enjoyment. And that's one is an incorrect way, and that leads to false light or false bliss or false orgasm, if you will, the dark passion. Okay. And the other one leads to the real joy, the real bliss that is infinite, not temporal. Meaning it doesn't work like a drug would. When you take it, you get high and you get that pleasure, and then there's a crash. That's the satanic pleasure world. And I'm going to get into this deeper, where all these forms of pleasure hiding. And then another way, which is alchemical way, and looking at directly at the source of discomfort or something that you may detect to be kind of off, right? I keep on talking about this. And there's this dissolution upon looking at there directly. That's your northern star. You're following northern star. You're being a good soul. You're playing life the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be playing, okay? And that produces those steady, continuous, peaceful and blissful feelings out of which the joy stems from, okay? And then when the joy is already there, anything is interesting and anything has that quality of pleasure, but it's enjoyment. It's very different from pleasure. And I know these words are used sort of interchangeably, but I'm just separating now, because we need to use the word to discriminate between that real enjoyment energy that is good and that dark pleasure energy that is bad and evil, and in the world of duality. One is through the soul, the other one's from the mind. This is something that to me is one of the most important nuggets and gems to realize within your consciousness. And which direction are you going? Okay. Now let's go a little bit deeper, and I'm going to denounce a lot of people here in this. Now, that pleasure is hiding in all sorts of forms. It is also hiding as, for example, one of the most addictive forms. It could be social media, or it could be chasing Kundalini high. Okay. Now, anybody who is selling you a knowledge, which is a type of knowledge seeking, gives you a type of like a pacifying high, or if somebody's selling you exercises to get that Kundalini high and whatnot, or whatever exercises they make you do that gets you to this point of high through the exercise, through this mind manipulation techniques and whatnot, and it gets you to that high. Yes, you can do that with techniques, and yes, you can get that high that you would normally get through using a drug, right? But the result on your system is the same. You just basically created the placebo effect of a drug. So people like Joe Dispenza, Sadhguru, Tony Robbins, they are the drug dealers. They are the high dealers. They are the evil clowns that sometimes that they play that archetype that sometimes people see in those like DMT experiences, that tricks the demon, which is actually the devil himself. Um, and Or Satan, if you will. Okay, and that archetype is only born when there's this motion of seeking resolution for the fragmentation that you have in your soul that meant to be looked at directly, infused at the source level in a permanent manner. And then all these positive feelings are there already, not as a high, not as a drug, but just a continuous background um, existence of life, right? Because it's just there already. And then it's sort of out of that, or out of these feelings, some positive emotion is springing out, and you may even do some activity, but that activity is not a means to an end. That activity is the expression of that joy that is already there. Okay, so I'm denouncing people like Joe Dispenza, Sadhguru, Tony Robbins, and many more, who anybody who leads you to any kind of high is a drug dealer. Okay, and what do society normally do with the drug dealers? And that's exactly how they should be treated. Now, they got away with this for some time because people cannot haven't sort of caught on, but now they are catching up. People do realize what just happened. Just because they didn't exogenously consume a drug, they got sold a drug in a different form, which is ruining their life just as a normal drug would do. And while you're taking that drug, you may feel like, wow, it's changing my life, right? But when it wears off and it's no longer functioning, and that's exactly what happens in the human system, the crash is sometimes unbearable, and withdrawals are, just like with any drug, is hard to handle sometimes, for a lot of people. So I would like to sort of encourage society to wake up and look at that as just another drug. Not that, you know, um, and treat it just like any other drug would be treated. Okay? So at least there's an awareness that, okay, if you go that way, okay, you should have well, it depends on domain, like whether you should have a liberty to try it out as a person, right? Like there is a certain type of free will where you can, if you want to put a drug in your system, you can, right? It's just like with any kind of drug. But the thing is that you also need to understand what's going to happen when the withdrawals kick in, or when the drug is no longer working, which will happen. And then the hole that you're in is maybe so deep that some people never get out. So instead, why not be intelligent and understand this motion of energy and stop seeking pleasures outside of you to fix that feeling inside? Okay, and go into that feeling inside, which does you don't require don't require anybody to sell you anything. And this is why it cannot be business. You should not spend a penny on something spiritual. right? Well, um, unless, to me, for example, if somebody uses their time for you, for them to show you and point you to you where you need to look, and to move to that state of consciousness that resolves that thing, which you can always do, and it's not a seeking motion, it's just settling in into this thing that's already there, but and understanding how you can unlabel all these things, basically moving in the right direction, right? That's it. There's nothing else to talk about, there's nothing else to do. It's just, if you manage to use your consciousness the way it's supposed to be used, and you see what I'm trying to say, like, then yes. And so some people do that, and this is something that I uh, would like to promote. um, for example, one of the guys that does that is Emerson, and he has a channel called Emerson Non-Duality, and he does exactly that. He just gets people one-on-one, and he just keeps pointing people through all sorts of means that he could see fit, just like what I did with Landon in that one-on-one session, until people see the direction of life that needs to be lived. Basically, that shift of consciousness happens, and there's this clarity there, and sobering up. So sobriety is actually so clean, and it's a real bliss. That crystal clarity and that sobriety, that sharpness of your consciousness, that is like, it's a real bliss. It's not a peak experience, but it's, you know, it can get to the peak experience, but it just goes back to this normal steadfast point. There's no crash. It can get to peak experiences. You just, for example, just having fun with somebody, making stupid ass jokes and whatnot, and just you get to the point of like having like a really I have a good time. So you can get really, really um, enjoyable experience, but as soon as that is over, it just goes back to the stead point, and there's no crash. So you're always can be caught with that peace, bliss, and in a way, like, this type of interaction does not hurt. This is something I say. This type of love does not hurt. This type of love does not hurt. It has no crashes. And anything that has crashes is not love. And so this is why you could look at somebody like a Joe Dispenza, which to me looks like a frog alien with no good intentions inside. You look, and it's just the way it is. You could tell a lot about the person from their face, you see. And sometimes people just overlook it, and they think like, well, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. Face is almost like a um, reflection of the soul. And sometimes people, their face change when they go through transition that they meant to go through, like when they stop playing these games and start living life directly. And you can tell when somebody is a soulful being or egocentric being by looking at their face, because they have that touch of that demonic quality of those DMT elves, that falseness, that I could detect it, but I don't know. There are cues like that, and it's this type of, just like that, famous DMT trickster, a clown, and it has that quality of, like that, and so you can tell that there's this thing going on there, that what kind of archetype is acting through them. And so they want you to get hooked on a Kundalini high, on a Kundalini drug. Okay, that's what they want to do. They're very, very bad people. They are satanic people. They just are not named so, because they're getting away with the umbrella of spirituality, you see. And I would treat them just like a drug dealers are being treated. Okay, it is it is supposed to be controlled. That's what I'm saying. Not that it's completely eliminated, because that's, not really how society is supposed to be functioning, but it's supposed to be something at the corner of the society that is might be sort of like available, but not, you see what I'm trying to say? Just like with any drug. For example, if you want to buy crack and whatnot, right? You can probably get it if you really want it, but it's just not available on over the counter. You can't just go and get it, right? Like that. So this is the same way with these. All their products is not supposed to be available just freely like this online for anybody to buy. That money direction should not flow to them. They don't deserve a single penny. In fact, they owe a huge debt to the humanity. Okay? So I'm glad we got that out of the way. And so let's go on. And if you really look deeper into this, you'll see why do I take this stance. Okay? I'm not taking like a completely tyrannical stance, but again, most humane thing that you could do with somebody who's been poisoning people with their nonsense is probably just take away the right to continue to do so, and give them time in prison so they could think things through and realize if they pretend to not understand what they're doing, and start looking within, and maybe they could start waking up themselves and not think that they are awoken or awakened or whatever, right? Anyway, that's just train of thought. But this is the way I would look at them. I don't have hate for them, but I also don't have any like for them either. And I don't really have any kind of love for them. I have peace about that, which is compassion. And this is how you should look at people who are evil and pretending not to be. Okay? So it's very tricky. And the only way you will know whether something is satanic or not is, are they selling you some sort of high or some sort of pacifier because you feel bad inside, or you may not even realize that you do? Or is there a seeking going on there for that feeling? Okay? So this is why you're doing it. And all of that is going to end up evil. Okay? Because you feeling bad and having that negative feeling for no fault of anybody, because I said it's just a feature of this game, this video game, but not knowing how to handle it and start seeking and asking the mind's help and seek for that again, I'm just repeating myself, but it's very important. If there is that motion and you are aware enough to detect that motion, you know that where it's going. Okay? And if you are getting high and then crashing, getting high and then crashing, that's another evidence for you. Or if you get, go to one of the retreats and then you can't stand just being in a normal life, go another one and you're addicted to that, that's another sign, right? So most of the people that I see in that type of dynamic, they're addicts. They're sick people. This is why they believe that they need healing, because they're sick. But they don't have to be sick. You see, the sickness happens as soon as they start seeking for the solution rather than looking at the source of their sorrow. And upon looking there, the sorrow disappears. And to my view, the only reason why it is so uncomfortable there, it is because it's asking for your attention. Attention and awareness. It's asking for the specific attention and awareness. It's not asking you to find external solution. It's asking you for truth and love, which is something what your attention and awareness is. Okay, so very simple, very basic. Now to go a little bit deeper into that dynamic of consciousness. Now, every time you, let's say you go throughout the day, like just happened recently, everything was going great, everything's going great, and then boom, there's this feeling coming along, right? And now you have to alchemize it. Now you have to face it. It may start spelling things, casting spells and saying that, like, oh, something like, oh, you're tired, or you're, you see what I'm trying to say? Like, it's a spell, it's not real. Like, you say, like, well, I had a full night's sleep, and now, because of this energy here, there's this spell going on that I'm tired. But as soon as you look at that source of it, you feel that the energy is entering your system and that it was all a lie as soon as you place attention there. But if you have that gravity, that your attention is trying to be placed on somewhere else, that's the game. That's the dark game that they're playing. And don't go there, because it's gonna lead to that dark passion. Somehow, some way, it's gonna lead to that. Like, it's interesting how it all works. Everything in Matrix is sort of built up to lead you to this dark passion, or that release from suffering, that high. Don't do it. Okay? Live life through the other way. One more thing I want to say about this is that high, that pleasure, when we are in the same pond, we are in the same video game, right? Everybody's participating. Whether you are playing that evil game and trying to sell drugs to people, or whether you are living through it directly, we're all in the same thing. This is why, like, if anybody is engaging in that pleasure world, there's gonna be a lot for you to alchemize. But every time you alchemize that, what happens is that you're filled with joy and enjoyment. Okay, and that's your responsibility to stay there. Okay, just by keep on attention and awareness there. Okay, no techniques, no nothing. It's just where you place your attention. This is, by the way, like what Eckhart Tolle is trying to do, Krishnamurti was trying to do. Always pointing at it, always pointing at it. And some people who have a capacity to do so, they can do so. And it's not a sort of like a waiting for it to end. It's a specific type of attention. So anyway, now let's move on. So every time you're full of joy and you're full of that peace and bliss, everything is great in the world. And more of that energy you are living in, the less of that energy is available for the people who engage in these satanic, activities. It's kind of an activity, and they like the law and a state supposed to control it by saying addictive activities. That's how it's supposed to be named, because it's not just addictive substance, because you're taking addictive substance is an addictive activity. But if you expand that, and if you say that there's an addictive activities that includes social media scrolling, this doing all sorts of exercises, like mental exercises that the Joe Dispenza is selling to you, to have that experience, that gamma state. That's a false gamma state, that the false light. It's not the real bliss. It's a temporary and a temporal bliss. It's not real. It has such a cost. It comes at the crash. And every time somebody is doing that and experiencing that type of pleasure, they are in the most evil place that they could be. They may not realize it, but they are contributing their energy for the ego tantrum to be manifested. And so I'm directly in war with that. Okay. And every time I alchemize that, they lose it. They lose that energy because I know where is that energy. And if the energy is within my area field, then I know at least they're not getting my energy. But I think it's a little bit deeper than that. And when they try to seek for that pleasure even more, then that's when the alchemical challenge becomes more active. And you may notice that type of Negredo stage that's kind of coming on you, right? And to me, that's just an idea. Again, it's just an idea and observation that came to me, that because we're on one system, that you could tell that they're engaging in seeking pleasure activities, and I think it happens, on a collective scale, because every time they feel bad, they want to fix, right? Book another retreat, do another Kundalini exercise, chase that high. Okay. So of course, but when they do that, and people who live life directly, and they don't go that way, and they live in their the real peace, the real bliss that is infinite and not temporal, then what happens? Their things don't work. They don't understand, like, why is it not working anymore? It is because there are new kids on the block, and not letting you to do that evil shit and provide energy to the ego endeavors that is about corrupting, and wanting more of that high. Everything's about that. Any human who is hooked on that high, whatever it may be, through sacrificing our children, drinking blood, adrenochrome, whatever, doesn't matter. Whatever you do, the higher the intensity of pleasure that you receive from this motion, the more evil you are. And because you're contributing the most energy for the ego tantrums to be manifesting. Okay. So okay, that's pretty much what the matrix is doing when it's invading the space of the soul. Now, matrix is supposed to be used as a tool, and this is why you always look at it as a tool. And you say, well, how can it serve me? How can I use it? And use it. It's not a live entity. Those DMT trickster clowns, they're not real entities. They're not alive. Definition of being alive is you have to be touching the source, where that non-programmable and infinite essence exists. But that is a result of a program, and it is actually a final boss in the matrix. Okay. This is why sometimes when people take DMT, and once they go through that space of these demon clowns, they enter into the real dimension, and most people never really go beyond that. Do you understand? And they still interacting with the clowns, and they think that doing whatever you need to do in relationship with the clowns is a thing. No, if you're interacting with the clowns, you are an ego, and clowns is just like one of the depiction of it. It can come in all sorts of forms. It can come Mother Ayahuasca, it can come all sorts of things, right? That's why just because you're taking psychedelic doesn't mean that you connect to God. It connects you to that. It can connect you to the Satan that feels like this euphoric high that wears off and crashes you. That's not God. That's not love. It's another thing that these people are missing. What about the feeling of love? You know? Anyway, so the more you seek the pleasure, the less in the world of love you are. And I already sort of made my decision because, like I said, I always say the reason I know this because at one point in my life I got caught into this. I thought that that mind-induced pleasure is a good thing, and so such a very tricky because you know, if you ask somebody like, look, if it doesn't it feel really good, isn't it good that feels really good? Yeah, but you have to ask the question, okay, right now it feels very good, right? Now what's going to happen later, when it wears off? And if it's temporal, if it's a crash, then it's not a good um, feeling. It's the dark passion, as I call it, right? So everybody needs to recognize the difference between that dark passion, pleasure, and enjoyment and joy, the real one, the white or light passion, which just comes from the joy. There's an expression of it, some sort of enjoyment, whatever it may be. It may be just enjoying food, uh, making love, whatever humans do, laughing, but it comes from there already, you see. And it doesn't have a crash. So that's the thing. That's how you know it's a good feeling and it's a bad feeling, because it's supposed to be non-temporal. It comes from peace, it does its thing, returns to peace. But if there is none of this natural motion going on, and if it gets you really high and then crashes you, okay, that's not right. Okay. And it's about your attention. It is so important. It's like direction of your attention. You could even uh, do any kind of activity, but if your focus is moving in the wrong direction, it's going to be, again, leading you to that thing. Okay. And so this is why it is so difficult for people to quit it when they get hooked. Now, usually they quit because it's no longer working, not because they came up to realization and said like, oh, right, I need to find Jesus and stuff like that, you know. And even people who find Jesus, then Jesus becomes a drug because they're still using the mind. Now Jesus is a drug, when in reality none of it is necessary to grab hold to anything. Just look at the source of all your feelings and be with that. And like I said, there's a feminine way of dealing it, is just looking at it, but not going inside, but just becoming this background, this compassion piece. And the masculine way would just kind of go in a little bit more in it, and some of it, that surrender is there, but you pierce through it. The reason it's different is because that peace, that silence, it really is this space where you are not touchable by any kind of energies outside. You could just go out and be in the same room full of demons and completely be untouched, and they not even recognize you, right? Like you almost like you're invisible to them, because energetically you are in that bubble of peace. But that doesn't mean that you are in a sort of war stance, right? Like you're not there to fight the demons. But if you go more in that penetrating direction, more towards the truth, then you are engaging those energies, and then the reaction may be there, right? Because it's that bliss that comes from peace is that real light that burns the demons, right? And so to defend against the demons is that peace, you know, just so to say, and take them on and alchemize them is that bliss, okay? And you have to be in a perfect space, like, you know, as a man you need to be more at that center of everything, and as a woman you need to be that space of nothing, and together you have like that expansion, which is a completely a continuous opening up, and that's that feminine motion, and then the masculine is a continuous piercing through, continuous attention. And so there's that galactic lovemaking that's going on, right? And as long as there's this galactic lovemaking is going on, there's this never-ending peace and bliss that's happening, that sometimes turns into the form of creation. Okay, so there, so your responsibility is, of course, to recognize that, dump all of these people who you know, I mean, by dumping them, just eliminate them from your reality. Don't um, participate in that. If anybody's participating, warn them, you know, and whatnot. They want to do it, they can keep on doing it, but you've been told that you're going the wrong direction, you know. So anyway, I wish there was a little. I mean, I could see right now a lot of people are pointing this out, because it usually is the people who participated in that thing, got really hooked, crashed down, burned, got back to the normal life where they are capable now just to be a normal human being, you know, that, you know, been on that trip. And then they talk about this and they say, like, look, this is a cult, because they it's all about chasing that high. It's never ending chasing of high, and that's how you know it's a cult. This is why this thing in Hollywood, in all sorts of, like, you know, music industry, if it's based on that, it's gonna be a cult. And honestly, like, it's time to kind of rid of cults, you know. And a state is supposed to be protecting people, and not you know. And I'm not against drugs or psychedelics or anything like that. I just recognize that they're like glimpses, you know. They're like they could be glimpses. And honestly, when people take psychedelics and they say, oh, I've entered in a bad trip, I got in a bad trip, it just showed that how much they have not really lived through, Life is like that. It's like you can't really shove anything under the rug. You have to live through all the feelings that are happening. It's part of life. And as soon as you try to shove it under the rug and then you try to fix it by some external pleasure, that's when all the nonsense happens. I don't know, like that would be the message. And to me, that's like the most important message to be sent. Of course, when you say this to a person, they're like, well, what's the alternative, right? Like, well, if I'm seeking, how do I end seeking? Because if I end seeking, I can't feel horrible, right? I have to feel good. And it can be shown. It's like, hey, look at that thing that you think it feels good, feels bad. Have you looked there? That thing that tells you to do all this stupid ass shit? Look there. And it's, looking at that thing or the background of that thing, it makes you look at something that mind cannot look, because mind always needs to grab hold to this or not this, right? It's dual. But when you look there without when you look at something where mind cannot look, what's just going to be end up looking is your soul, right? Because mind can't take that type of focus. It's like, well, if you become aware of everything at once, all the sensations at once, mind has to choose, right? But soul doesn't have to. And there's this peace. Now, of course, right now, I'm very aware that there's a level of chemical challenge going on, but like it doesn't bother me. It feels pretty good. It's like it's like a feeling of something's burning up, you know. And so, if there could be any kind of sin or that original sin, it's this. It's bailing on your soul for that external fix. That's the original sin. As long as you don't bail on your soul for that external fix, you're good. Like that's the only thing that is required. It's not complex. It's not. You need to understand. It is one simple thing that could be shown by the point in a circle. This is where you enter into the world, and then when you see the world directly, then you can play with it, and then you can say, okay, what is this creative process that I can engage? Until you do that, it's just going to be this dark external seeking for pleasures and form. Now, it is fascinating that your mind can do that, that your mind can create this placebo effect of a drug, right? That Kundalini thing and whatnot. That somehow it can connect that masculine and feminine in abominable way. Mind can do that. And so all these people are working really hard to make these people get that high so that the connection would be, but it's abominable. It's disgusting. It has no love there, right? And it's very clear, like to ask a question whether you do something out of pleasure or enjoyment. It is very clear. I don't know how. It's like I sometimes notice when my mind starts just starting to chase something, and I'm like, no, go back. Look, everything that you want, it's coming slowly. It's on its way. It's happening right now at a gradual pace and gradual degree, and it's growing. You know, it's doing its things. We're not waiting for the next thing. It's a continuous enjoyment. There might be moments where it just like it goes into the intensity, whoa, and then it just goes back into a little bit more calm. But it's this real thing. It's there's something beautiful there, alive. It's and how could it not be the most important lesson to learn? I don't want any people in my world to be on that chasing dragon thing and replacing one with another. If they now are not doing this, now they are doing, you know, chasing Kundalini high and whatnot, or whatever the fuck. And I can be around anybody, you see. Before I wasn't sort of able to, but now I learn how to be at peace with everybody. And it's the best place to be, honestly. You know, like I could be in front of the most evil person in the world, and yeah, okay. Well, how can you be mad at the laptop, you know, or the program? You can't, and you don't have to like dehumanize these people in understanding that they're functioning from that archetypical drive, and there's just nobody home. If there would be somebody home, they would not act like that. If somebody is gonna um, sit behind that vessel or not, we don't know. But if somebody is, then then you can feel it and now interact with the person because he's real. Yes, in a way, when you're out and about and you have your own energy. And look, I've also started looking at the world like this, and part of me doesn't just kind of a little bit resisting against this, but it is true. Um, Neville said that the world of form is dead, and at first I was like, what does it mean? He meant to say that it's just programs running. Unless you come in and imbue it with the spirit, with that real enjoyment and love, it's just empty pictures moving around. So in a way, it's becoming your responsibility to imbue that with realness. And even the people who engaging in these addictive activities, if you hang out with them for a brief moment and they forget about chasing that thing and they understand that now you know, they got lost in interaction where there's no sort of like agendas going on, but just pure enjoyment and co-creative process. For a brief moment, that person is becomes real. You know, if they enter that type of field, you know, because that's what you do. You walk around with that field around you, and people may enter, they come alive, and it's amazing. And some don't, but that's okay. And so that's my right now. Mine thing is to be at peace when some people don't react to it, right? Like, um, or I could feel that energy sort of in the air, and some people enjoying it, and some people don't. And I used to have this type of like, hey, why are you, you know, not not having a good time, you know? And so that was that clinging idea of like, oh, now let's look at the person who's not having a good time. But I'm not sure that that is a right thing to do. I mean, you could always try to cheer people up, but Don't just don't focus on that, right? Invite them. That's another thing I wanted to say. Invitation. You cannot force anybody to enter this field, this holistic field, which is just like an oral feelings. You can't force anybody. And even if you think that, like, you know, but that's good for them. Yeah, but you can't force it. You can only invite. And I'm talking right now from this energy interaction and language communication. You can only invite. You can't force it. So extend an invitation, and if people like to, they will join. If they don't, they don't. And so this is the best frame control principle in the world. It's the principle um, of invitation, right? And you can use it anywhere, especially between male and female interactions. Always look at it as an invitation, and it's very clear. Like, you can set the boundaries that are very elegant and maybe even graceful, where you see these boundaries as such. For example, okay, so that person like this, I want to play this type of game, whatever that may be, any activity, dinner, dance, movie, whatever, right? Whatever activity you want. And then the only thing you can do is invite. Then if you hang out with the person, the only thing you can do is you can invite them by, if you're making jokes and whatnot, that like not politically correct and whatnot, it's an invitation. Say, hey, join me this cool vibe where, you know, political correctness is nonsense. And it's an invitation. And they can join or not. And if they don't join, it's obvious. And so it's always, you look at this as like invitation for uh you know for the game to play. It's almost like, okay, I'm inviting you to sort of relax, let go of all these belief systems, and just be laughing at anything. It's some type of invitation. It's like, hey, do you want it or not? But if person is kind of tied up about this, then they said no to an invitation. And so then you remain at that level of interaction where they want to be. And if you get bored, you just say, thanks, I'll see you later. Right? It's this type of respectful invitation to play a game. This can be applied to anything in any point in your life. It's always about this. Because when one soul comes in contact with another, there is going to be some sort of game or creative process that's going on. And you set those parameters of what that's going to be and invite. And the person can say yes or no. And every time you change the parameters, you invite them again. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, you don't say, like, you can even say that, like, hey, how to say it? Yeah, you can literally invite them in whatever activity you want to do. So there. And honestly, that's the best thing that you could do. And also understand that when people, for example, say no to your invitation, it's, of course, it's not, you don't think this anyway, because there's that idea that, like, if somebody says no to your invitation, that there's something lacking with the game that you want to play, or that is, no, it's from this side of the pond, as I say, it's very clear, because you know that you are just enjoying life, you know, and you invite somebody else to enjoy life too. That's it. And they have a right to say no. You can try again later, see if they respond later. Because notice people are not really frozen in time, you know what I'm trying to say? Um, there are sometimes openings in people, meaning depending on time and space and whatnot, there may be open to play the game, right? And then they might be closed off again like the next day. And a lot of people are like that. And to me, it was kind of weird because why don't you wanna, one time you want it, then next time you don't. But that's how the way it is. Some people just want to dip toes into that real enjoyment of life. They just want to dip toes and enjoy a little bit, and then go back into this pleasure-seeking thing again. And that's okay. I call it Cinderella effect. And they do become real for that moment, and they go back to this. And then if you try to communicate with them, it's just going to be again like very robotic, or very um, cue card responses, I suppose. Like you could see that, okay, there's no playfulness, there's just like blah blah blah. A bot is interacting with you. Okay, there's no openness there then. So it's fine. But of course, you naturally prefer somebody who, you know, don't go back into that matrix game anymore, and mostly stay in this space. Jesus, man, it's of course that's who you would want to hang out with more. And yeah, and sometimes like you have to say like, okay, this is just um like not worth it. Like if they have like that, such a low frequency of that openness, that then sometimes it's just not worth it, not worth your time. And people do need to understand what is the difference between joy and pleasure. It's so so important. Joy does not have a crash. It has an uplifting effect, actually. What else can I say about this, guys? Just keep doing this, live this art of living, Yes, some of the things in the world of magic, which is imagination, once you're really settled in, don't go into the world of imagination if there is still a process of alchemical process that's going on. And I know that you do feel it, and I know when you feel it, we're all in the same pond, right? But if there's an alchemical process, mostly alchemize it, right? So don't go into the imagination if it's a very strong alchemical process. Just stay there and stay in alchemy and theurgy, as I say. Like, do the things that you need to do, but make sure that your attention is where it needs to be. And once the energy is flowing, engage in some activity that you could enjoy. Damn, And then whenever the energy is flowing and it's really blissful and it's nice, then you can imagine something from that feeling. And build your astral world. Which, by the way, I I love to see this as bubbles. Like we have bubbles. Each imagine we have bubbles, and we look after each bubble is like alive, and we trying to uh, develop these bubbles, and that's our dream. That's our soul desire. And Some of these bubbles may be dark and is going to the tantrum world, which is seeking pleasure, right? And so that desire is going backwards. So you have to make sure that it's going in the right direction, and then you take care of each single desire that you have that is going in the right direction, and you don't let that crystal ball, that egg, to be swept away by the darkness. You take care of it. That's your dream. And if the matrix comes in and denies that to you, you go into imagination, and it's there, and it's not denied. It is exactly how you want it. Maybe you may need to be less specific, but you don't give up on your dream. That's the one thing that you don't want to do, is give up on your dreams. 1 second. Actually, guys, it's already 1 hour. So, peace, and I'll see you in the next one.